Our first guest is Leroy Chiao. He's a veteran of 4 space missions, the last of which in 2005 was as commander of Expedition 10 aboard the International Space Station. He's logged over 229 days in space, crazy, 36 hours of which were spacewalks or extravehicular activity. He's a native English speaker, but also speaks Mandarin and Russian. He's the co-founder and CEO of One Orbit, which provides training to companies and schools, including the recent Phoenix Rising Own the Future, which he did with Unify Good, I see. And he's created what we all like to see, a photo book of pictures from his 4 space missions, which sounds incredible. And
it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. It's gorgeous.
Let's invite in Leroy.
Okay, that was a speed intro. Your introduction was as fast as 15,700 miles an hour. Hi, Leroy.
Hey. Let's get it.
Hello.
Hey.
All right. How are you?
Seems to be the right color to wear today.
That's right.
You got the memo.
Yeah.
Actually, Dan, do you see that green box over Leroy's shoulder? That's that beautiful book we were just mentioning.
Oh.
It's gorgeous. That is such a beautiful, beautiful book. Anyway, Leroy, thank you so much for being here with us today. We are extremely thankful.
Yeah.
And so happy to have you talk to Dee as well in a little bit. And do you remember meeting Dan?
Yeah. How you doing, Dan?
I'm very well. My son has had your signed photo on his wall.
Oh, good. Good. Thanks.
In the Hamptons. So thank you for that.
Sure. Yeah, you're welcome.
Cool. And so today we're going to be talking about resilience. But before we get into any topics, and Dee will be joining us shortly, Dan has a question for you.
Sure.
So if you recall, I'm a musician.
Right.
And so I have a particular space theme song, which is Life on Mars from David Bowie.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Do you have one? Do you have a favorite song that's space related?
You know, I have to say I'm kind of old fashioned. And so, the music that came to me when I first flew into space and I always associate with space is from 2001, Richard Strauss and the Blue Danube, right? So,
yes.
So that's always the first one that comes to mind. But yeah, I mean, the more contemporary stuff that I like, a little more contemporary, Frank Sinatra, of course, Fly Me to the Moon, and then REM, Man on the Moon, right? So, or Man in the Moon. But yeah. So there have been a few over the years.
Brilliant. Did you listen to any of those while you were in space? Did you have any particular go-tos?
Let's see. I'm trying to remember what we had. It's kind of funny because during my space station mission, when we would have had more music to listen to, we had my Russian crewmate. He spent so much time in Houston, he actually developed a liking for country music. So he, particularly the women artists, I think he would just watch that in his apartment, watch the country music channel on. And so there's a lot of Sarah Evans and Faith Hill.
Was Shania Twain at the top of that list by any chance?
What's
just
that?
A guess. Was Shania Twain at the top of that list?
Shania Twain was right in there.
Yeah, just a guess.
Yeah, Sarah Evans, and all that. So.
Yeah, exactly. Would you mind explaining to Dan sort of like what the difference is between like EXP versus STS?
Oh, yeah. So STS, those were shuttle missions. The space shuttle was formerly called the Space Transportation System, so STS. And the expedition missions were the long duration missions to the International Space Station. So we called them expedition and numbered them from, one up. I think we're up to something like 160 something now. I think we're getting up there. So I was on Expedition 10. So I was more towards the front end of all that.
And you were the commander of that mission, I understand?
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Amazing. And did you get up there by space shuttle just the same?
Well, so I flew on 3 space shuttle missions before my space station mission, but for my space station flight, we launched on a Russian Soyuz rocket, and we flew up to the station in a Russian spacecraft and came down in a Russian spacecraft. So
it's
quite a different experience.
Leroy, which one? That amazing picture of you in the Russian Sokol suit?
Yeah, Sokol. Yeah.
Which trip was that?
Yeah, so that was getting ready to come back down. So we were, about a couple weeks before they had us put those suits back on to make sure they still fit, because in space without any gravity, of course, your spine relaxes and you end up getting about an inch and a half taller. And so they have to accommodate for that when they build your suit. So they just want to make sure they still fit.
Incredible. It's incredible. And that picture, who took the picture?
Salajan did.
Was he also outside with you, or was he?
Oh, you mean the pictures of us outside in the spacesuit?
There is a picture of you that I still to this day, it's one of my favorites, and it looks almost like a space selfie because you can see like the solar
solar rays.
Yeah, they're incredible. And there you are, just in your Sokol suit, out in space, chilling.
Oh, is that the kind of the tan colored suit?
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually an Orlan suit. So that's the Russian EVA suit. That's their spacewalking suit. Yeah, so that's so Salajan took that picture. Yeah.
Got it. Can you tell us the difference between the U.S. space EVA suit or spacewalk suit is the Sokol suit?
No. The U.S. one is called the EMU, Extravehicular Mobility Unit.
That's right.
All acronymed up like NASA. But no, the Sokol suit is the white suit that we wear inside the Russian spacecraft. It's the pressure suit, so it's a much lighter suit, and it's to protect you in case we have lose cabin pressure or something.
Got it. And then the Russian EVA suit, and could you repeat that name again?
Yeah, it's called the Orlan.
The Orlan. Yeah. What does that feel like? Like, what is that? What is the difference between the Russian Orlan and then the EMU suit?
Yeah, they're actually quite different. I mean, they're similar, and so the analogy I like to use is like 2 different cars. Both cars do kind of similar things to get you from point A to point B, but they're very different, right? So that's the way these spacesuits are. The American suit is optimized for performance. And so, for example, my gloves were custom molded to my hands to fit me, as perfectly as possible. And then the arms, you can have sizing rings in different sizes, and the leg pieces. You had three different sizes of the torso unit. So your suit's kind of customized for you with your gloves. And then at least while we were building the station, and then customized with these standard parts to optimize the fit for you. The U.S. helmet comes off, and it's got these cutouts, so you get much more of you can get much more visibility when you of course when you turn your head, your helmet doesn't turn, so you can get a lot more visibility out the sides. Now the disadvantage of all that is every time you have a connection, that's a potential leak path. Right, so you have more chances of some kind of a problem. The detachable helmet, same thing. That's another potential leak path, right? If that seal doesn't work out. The Russian suit, on the other hand, they have 2 sizes of gloves, a medium and a large. And you just pick the one that fits your hand the best. The helmet is integral to the suit, so it doesn't come off, and it's just got a round faceplate, so the visibility is a lot more limited. The arms and the legs, they don't come off. They have these steel cables in them, and you basically pull to some adjustment and then, Velcro it off. And so you're bunching the material together, on the arms and the legs till it kind of fits you. And so it's a lot more stiff. Plus the Russian suit operates at a higher pressure than the American suit. So it's a lot more stiff, a lot more difficult to work in. But it's much simpler in that, if there's a change in the crew of who's going up, now suddenly in the American suit, you've got to worry about, well, how are we going to get this guy's parts up there, for his suit?
Oh my God.
The Russian suit's one size fits all. You just change the adjustment, and it's fine. So, and then the pressure difference, that all affects the pre-breathe protocol. Since we go down to a lower pressure in the U.S. suit, it's much more flexible, much more easy to work in. But now you've got this complicated pre-breathe protocol to purge the nitrogen out of your blood enough so that when you go down to that lower pressure, you don't get the bends. So there's pluses and minuses to each suit, but they both kind of do the same thing. But the American suit, frankly, is much more capable.
Speaking of capable Americans, I have a legend in our waiting room right now.
Yeah.
May I let him enter?
Yeah, please. That would be great.
Let's see who we got. I see him connecting to audio. Let's see if he can see us.
Hello?
Hi, D.
Hey.
Hey, Annie, what's happening? What's happening, Leroy?
How are you?
Hey, D, how you doing?
What's Annie? Where do you live at now?
Oh, I am a woman of the universe. I am currently in my Earth cupola, and it is a long story, and I will
Are you in New York?
And telling you everything.
Are you in New York?
I will be back in New York very shortly, actually.
Okay.
And I look forward to seeing your face in person.
I know, it's been so long. How you doing?
It's been so long. And so Dan and Leroy, you have met both of these fine gentlemen in the past.
Yep, I remember.
You and Leroy met out in East Hampton when we did that crazy festival. So thank you, as always, for being part of all these crazy ideas.
No, it was fun. I loved it.
And we just had a chat with Jal on a separate thing. And so Jal says hi, sends love.
Yes,
and he told a very brief story about when we got on the ground on our trip, and you were just so excited to be kissing the ground. And we were at the airport, and everyone was like, well, who is this guy? What is he doing? What is he doing? Pure chaos. So anyway, he says hi and what's up and sends a piece.
Definitely.
So anyway, thank you for being here today with us.
So what is this that y'all doing?
Okay.
you tell us. So we have D. If you recall, I'm a musician, and Annie is now representing a lot of.
We played at that little club, right?
We played at what was it called? St. Stephen's.
Yep.
Stephen's Talk House.
Talk House.
Yep. I passed it the other day, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh, did you really? Amazing.
Yeah. And I was like, I played there.
Wait, if I can just say before we go into this conversation, I have this vision in my head of D is doing his thing. Leroy, I can see you on the side, just like totally into it. And then I don't remember if it was like whatever you were singing, and you invited the other musicians. So Tonic was there, and Glenn felt like a lot of other musicians, and everyone was so in awe that they were speechless.
Yeah.
Like literally, I kept saying,
Yep. I remember that.
I can speak for the group of us.
Everyone freaked out.
We were all freaked out. Like
it was amazing.
We consider you a legend, and so the idea here is that you are obviously a legend and a pioneer in music, in American music, and Leroy is one of a very small contingent of people on the earth who have been in space himself multiple times, and we have a topic today. It is amazing, and Annie will tell us the topic for the day. We're hoping that we can get both of you to speak on this topic, how it relates to you, where you might find common ground besides this amazing little festival we put on together.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. The best festival that no one ever saw. Thank you very, very much.
I was there. I saw it.
You were all there. Thank you.
Yeah.
You were all there. Wow, thank you. Well, today we thought it would be really interesting to talk about resilience.
Oh, resilience. Okay.
The idea of resilience in both of your paths, and also as related to your personal journey and your culture, where you come from, how that impacted your ability to move forward, and then how do you keep moving forward? Because as you know, both paths that you've taken that you've done very well in, it is not an easy trip, right? So how do you hang in there, especially when you both come from such interesting backgrounds and different cultural things? So that's really one of the things that we wanted to please talk about today was resilience.
Let's talk about it, resiliency.
And Dee, I mean, maybe you could start us off. I mean, starting with your original history, not only what you did in terms of music was really quite different at the time. And that, like, we talk about trailblazers, right?
Right.
You are certainly both trailblazers. So how would you explain sort of the trailblazing aspect and how resilient you had to be when you were first coming into the music business?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I think what gives you a power pack of ability, confidence, and something to fall back on is your desire to do whatever it is that you set out to do in the first place. Now, that's a beautiful thing because without anybody's approval, it's the most empowering feeling ever. But sometimes along the way, when there's obstacles, when there's self-doubt and doubt from outside of yourself, when it seems like there's a preordained way of things, the preordained way of how things are supposed to happen. There's also people that don't want you to take those positions or have those things or achieve this particular thing. So I think one of the most important things that begins as the seed of the tree of resiliency that one must allow to grow and flourish is just to have that passion of doing whatever it is, the passion of creativity. I was watching an amazing show on TV called The Discovery of Witches. I think it's on AMC or something. Wonderful show. It's witches and warlocks and vampires and all of that. And they was trying to teach one young girl who didn't want to claim her right to her family's ancestry of magic and stuff like that. But when she finally got around to do it, she wasn't able to light the candle and she wasn't able to move things. And she was talking to the lady that was trying to teach her about all of this witch and magic stuff. But it was amazing that the head witch that was trying to teach this girl, she said, no, magic ain't all witches and warlocks and mystical stuff. She said, magic is the desire to create something or do something. And I heard that, I was like, wow, nobody never thinks about that. So I never wanted to be in show business, which is crazy. And the reason why I'm able to talk to people now is because after 35 years of being on stage in front of some people, I had a lot of practice. But in the beginning, I was just a shy little kid growing up in Hollis, Queens, New York. I went to Catholic school my whole life. You know what I'm saying? I was one of those kids that I had parents that loved me. And your parents, when they really love you, there's rules and regulations you got to follow. Like, don't leave the block. You have your butt in this house when that street light come on. All of those things. So the times that I went and prayed to God, God, please hit my mother with a bus for making me come in the house so early during the summertime. After that, I got the anger was over, I thought about how much my parents loved me. But that being said, since I was always in the house or, I always had to be in the house, I had to use this imagination. So for me, I was a kid growing up, I read a lot of comic books. So it was the comic books that took me to places that I've never thought I would ever experience. Because when you're reading something, it's an experience. You feel all the emotions, the excitement, the scared, the doom, the villains, the bad guy, the sad things, people dying, and just all of that. So I was getting all of these emotions and these feelings and these experiences. Like I couldn't leave the block. So Stan Lee was beautiful. Stan Lee was a genius to me because he put the superheroes really in New York. So as a little kid, every time I opened up a Marvel comic book, I learned about the city that I lived in, but I couldn't actually go around and see that. So he taught me about the Lower East Side. He taught me about Harlem, Hell's Kitchen, and everything. But at the same time, the only time, and when I was growing up in Queens, I had a lot going against me. And resiliency is all about being prepared to face the obstacles, or being prepared, like you said earlier, Annie, to be able to move the next step forward. Because a lot of times you get these obstacles, you either say it's safer for me to be right here and I'll just stay here for the rest of my life, or you turn it around and you completely leave and you go back to what you was doing and you never get a chance to experience what it is to be successful at whatever your desire is. So for me, I was a Catholic school kid that wore comics, read comics, and I got teased, bullied, and picked on. But when I was in the house reading these comic books, it was the only time in my universe where I saw smart people who were powerful. Tony Stark, Reed Richards, you know what I'm saying? Peter Parker. I could relate to Peter Parker because he was this awkward school kid like me, but he also lived in Queens. So I didn't know all of that was going to add to it when this thing called hip hop comes over the bridge. But prior to hip hop, I grew up, you know, listening. My mother and father's music was soul music. James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Al Green, and Marvin Gaye. That's when my parents were still young and cool. So as a little kid, I didn't really have no music until this thing called hip hop came over the bridge. And it was hip hop that exposed me to rock and roll, to the likes of Harry Chapin and Jim Croce and Janis Joplin and John Fogerty and John Lennon. And whereas when I was looking at the Jackson 5 and the Osmond Brothers was always on the cover of Tiger Beat. That was the white teen magazine. And Right On magazine was the black teen magazine. But everybody was reading Right On and this and that. But for some reason, it was the guys like, you know, John Lennon and John Fogerty and Neil Young, who musically would write about the adversity that we all were facing as people living in America. You know, Kent University, civil rights, women's rights, political issues. So that being said, I was that kid. I was attracted to those guys because, you know, when I was there, I liked comic books and AFX race cars and Evel Knievel and Star Trek and Godzilla models. I wasn't into girls back then. You know what I'm saying? So my focus was on, you know, going to outer space like the Silver Surfer, trying to understand what the hell Tony Stark was talking about. So when I would hear rock and roll talk about politics, social issues, and presidents and stuff like that, I could relate to that. So fast forward to me being able to do this hip hop thing. So I do this hip hop thing. I'm writing these rhymes about, you know, Darryl McDaniels from Hollis, Queens, and then I'm able to talk about these social issues. Now, getting into the music business, this established entity was like a wake-up call. Right. And when we came in with this hip hop thing, rock and roll was huge, soul music was huge, funk was huge, R&B was huge, but we the new kids on the block. And nobody believed in hip hop. They thought hip hop was going to die like disco had just died. Disco was hugely successful. I mean, and disco had a great run. And with all the artists, Donna Summer, the Bee Gees, Saturday Night Fever, like disco took over the universe, but then it died. So here comes this thing called hip hop. They thought the same thing was going to happen. So make a long story short, I get into the business and it's nothing but doubt. You're not serious. You're not a legitimate form of music. Hip hop is a fad. Where are you going to be in 3 years? And we had all of these obstacles going against us. And a lot of the comments and a lot of the pressure, you know, to get on the radio, to sell the records, to get on the shows and stuff like that, it was a load to be carried by because it could cloud your vision of the thing that you once loved. And that happens to a lot of people. But I was able to my resiliency against all the obstacles, the doors being shut in front of our faces, the doubt, you know, we couldn't get signed to a major label. I wanted to be signed to a major label like the Beatles, but they're telling me I'm not worthy enough. But I think it was my love just to do what it was that I wanted to do that allowed me to, it wasn't like people were throwing blows at me, but I didn't feel nothing because I just felt good about what I was doing. And I think to answer your question, it's the and I'm not talking about passion. It's just that love, regardless or not. This is the biggest thing to me. Let me describe it like this. When you was a little kid and you came home from kindergarten with your finger painting, and your parents or whoever was your guardian would hang that finger painting on a refrigerator like it was a work of art, that was the reverence that I had for myself.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. There's so much in that for you, Leroy. Like, I don't know if it's the Silver Surfer going to space or comic books, but did you have a similar experience when you were a kid and on your path?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I agree with what Dee just said, all of that. And, I have a little bit of a different experience and a little different spin, but fundamentally a lot of the same. Resiliency, I think, comes either from this desire to do something, this love of doing something. And for me, I can't remember a time I wasn't looking at pictures of airplanes or fascinated by looking at airplanes in the sky. And then when rockets came along, I thought that was really cool. And I was really young back then. And so that kind of, that made me want to go and pursue something in that area. But even as a young person, you realize that there are obstacles to overcome. Also, so resiliency can come from that, of course, but it can also come from having your back up against the wall. And, just like negative reinforcement is more effective in training animals and people, I guess, the negative part really stuck with me. Growing up as a young person in the 60s and the early 70s, as kind of around that 12-year-old, 13-year-old range, growing up predominant, mainstream American communities in California. I was the only kid that looked different in my school. I was also the smallest kid in my grade always. And so, when I got to that age, sure, I got my share of bullying. You can be sure of that. And it was pretty tough. And, you get your back against the wall and you can either kind of decide you're not going to take it or you just crumble, right? And so that made me very resilient. I decided I was going to take that negative energy that I was receiving and turn it around and motivate myself to do even better in school. And I knew that was the key to going and doing something important, was to do the best I could in school and of course to do the best I could to stay healthy. So that got me through that. And then I went to university and I was studying at university. And I, by the way, I was inspired by, of course, the Apollo 11 moon landing as an 8-year-old to want to become an astronaut. So that was always something that also made me work hard, want to be resilient and, get around all these obstacles. But, I was studying and getting my undergraduate degree at Berkeley in chemical engineering, which, by the way, is still the single hardest thing I've ever done in my life, is to get through that program. Back then, as I'm sure it's probably still that way, the university's philosophy was we're going to take a lot more people than we intend to graduate, and particularly in these particularly popular departments where we just don't have the bandwidth to take care of educate everyone. And so I got to my first real chemical engineering class as a junior, and the professor looked around and said, well, 2/3 of you won't pass my class. This is one of the first classes and we intend to weed you all out. And so, it was pretty tough that here's the teacher that's supposed to be helping you, telling you he's trying to get rid of you. And, it was very clear nobody cared about you at all. And so sure enough, he gave us our first exam. After the point where you could drop the class, if you didn't do well, you could drop. Well, the first exam was after that point, so you couldn't drop. So you were either going to pass the class or you're going to fail. And I got a 7 out of 100 on that exam. So my first real F. 7, yeah, 7 out of 100. And, and I'll tell you what, my back was against the wall and I fought like hell. I studied harder. I went and did all, and I passed that class. I actually got a C+. I actually graduated or finished that class with a C+. So, that experience, and, that wasn't the only class like that, but that experience made me very self-reliant, and just the resilience of keep coming back and not giving up. My buddy who took the class with me, he gave up and he failed. And then he had to retake the class again the next year. But, just not being willing to accept that it made me kind of angry. All that stuff. Being bullied as a little kid made me angry. Having these professors at the school that didn't care about me made me angry. And so, it made me resilient. I said, well, to hell with them. I'm gonna succeed anyway. And so that, as Dee was saying, that gave me the confidence, that having the dream, wanting to pursue that dream and having that confidence was really important in helping to make me resilient. So along my university path, I never forgot about that dream of wanting to become an astronaut. And I made the mistake of telling some of the guys that's what I wanted to do. And they made fun of me relentlessly and for a couple of weeks. That was another thing where, it could have been easy for me to just be embarrassed and say, yeah, I'm just kidding around. That was a dumb idea. I'm not smart enough to do that. Right. But, I said, no, you know what? I'm going to go do this, or at least try to do this. And I'm going to prove them wrong, which I did. So, resiliency is something that's very important. I talk to kids. When I talk to kids, I tell them it's important to have that dream, that passion, but that perseverance, that willingness to work hard, and work smart. I mean, like I said, if you hit a barrier, if you hit a brick wall, you don't just keep beating your head against it. You figure out a way around it and, another way to get there. So, but that resiliency, I tell them that's the key to success, is being willing to work hard and to continue to work hard.
That's what the superheroes do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what all the comic books.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
The odds are up against you, and you pull through.
Right.
Deep down, that's what comic books is all based on. And talking about Stan Lee again, it's funny because as a little kid, when I saw these comic books, it made me want to read. So I was a good student. Because I wanted to understand what all of these scientific terms and these big words Reed Richards and Tony Starks and these guys is using. So that made me, from first grade to like 7th grade, I want to know what the hell the rings of Saturn is doing and cosmos. So I wanted to understand that. So part of that is, a lot of the things that you find interest in. A lot of people think that, and I always say this at Comic Cons, to all the kids, all the adults, to whoever's into, whether it's the Powerpuff Girls, or if it's Star Wars, or if it's superheroes, or if it's manga, whatever it is. I used to think that things were made for you. But then I realized in this world, those things exist because you are here. And I tell these people, they go, "Oh, I never thought about it like that." So I'm reading these comic books. It's making me a good student. But then it goes further. It was just little things, little natural signs of encouragement that come from all angles besides the people around you. It comes from things. You know what I'm saying? When when I was a kid, I used to watch Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
Love that.
Remember
That's
that?
the best show.
Oh yeah, that was a great show.
Remember that show? And it just mesmerized you, and they would tell you about how these animals live and survive and so that. So somewhere along the way, that's ingrained in all of us. That experience.
Yeah.
But what I was trying to say is, I remember learning what an adjective was. An adjective is a word that describes a noun or describes something. And then I realized when I'm reading all these comic books, Stan Lee, rest in peace, he taught me in life to find myself with an adjective that's powerful and positive, and then tell the world who I am. For instance, if I say the amazing, people will say Spider-Man. If I say incredible, they'll say Hulk. If I say the mighty, they'll say Thor. And if I say the invincible, they say Iron Man. So all of this is in me now. I'm going into this hip hop thing, and there's a lot of competition. You know what I'm saying? Whether it is, I know you can relate to fly that plane, to be the astronaut that's going to get to, the one to be trained, or to get into that class, which is the next level. There's always steps to go through. And a lot of times the resiliency comes from your preparation. And a lot of times preparation comes from, like you just said, the desire for you, I'm gonna do this, I gotta do this, because you're receiving all this information which prepares you for the preparation. So coming into this hip hop thing in the music business with all this doubt around me, I'm saying, I'm coming into this like the amazing Spider-Man. If Spider-Man can do it, if Peter Parker can do it, I can do it. So it was almost one of those things where, DMC is the initials of my name. D from Darryl, MC from McDaniels. But coming into this to this new realm, I looked at it like a comic book adventure. I said, when Darryl McDaniels gets on that microphone, he's no longer mild-mannered Catholic school kid Darryl McDaniels. He transforms into amazing, incredible, invincible. DMC, instead of Darryl McDaniels, now transforms into the devastating mic controller.
Yes.
So now I'm walking on stage and everybody's looking at me like, yo, there's something different about this kid, this and that. They're thinking I'm just really good at performing, but they have no idea. I'm just pretending to be the most powerful entity. They have no idea that I'm make-believe. And a lot of our resiliency, drawing from that energy, draws you back to that time, for instance, when you was pretending to be a pilot. That's actually practice.
Yeah, right.
You're in your room flying around like this. That's actually, you are there doing that. So now that day that comes, you may have a little anxiety and reservation about that first flight, but something inside you tells you've been here before. So a lot of resiliency comes from those things that you thought about, making believe I could become that, pretending to become. Those things become reality. And a lot of times our resiliency is shut down because we start believing what the people outside of us are saying. Oh, you could never do that, this and that. Like people say, hip hop ain't gonna sell no records. We went gold. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop ain't gonna sell no records. Then we had the first platinum album. Then we went multiple platinum. But that's because we was already, when I was dancing in front of my mirror, I actually was already on stage at Madison Square Garden. I knew that, but the world didn't know. So a lot of our resiliency comes from the beliefs that we have about ourselves. But although you do need encouragement around you, you do need those people that say, you can do this, keep going, because that's just reassurance. Because look, you have to be reminded. You know what I'm saying? You have to rehearse. You need reassurance. So resiliency is just somebody telling you you're already resilient. You just have to be if that makes sense. And it's all about, being in the experience, because everything across the board, I don't care if you're a professor, if you're a cook, if you're a performer, if you're a dancer, if you're a journalist, I don't care if you're a construction guy, all this, it's all different genres and situations, but how things process and the things that you go through is all the same. It's going to be defeat, it's going to be doubt and stuff like that. So resiliency is grabbing back the joy of just to do it in the first place. And if you never let that go, you will succeed. Sometimes it'll come quicker, and sometimes it'll take you a little longer. I always tell kids, don't be mad at the success of the other people. The reason why yours is taking a little longer is because you got more to learn. Don't be mad that Horatio Hornblower is, killing his studies, killing his grades, and he already got his scholarship. I said, don't look down on yourself. He was prepared. He don't need no more. So now it's time for him to go and do what he's supposed to do. Yours is going to take a little longer because there's some things when your time comes that Horatio Hornblower ain't going to experience. And kids start to see that differently.
It's incredible. Dee, you brought up something that, Leroy, I wanted to ask you if you've ever done this. You were talking, when you were kind of shifting into your superhero mode, and it made me think, I don't know if you guys have ever been in a situation where like you had to talk to yourself. Like if you got into an intense situation. Like, I remember one time I had to do like a huge presentation and something really weird had happened before. So I had to like literally like sit there and smile, but have a conversation with myself. Or like one time scuba diving and a shark dive in Costa Rica, I got left at sea, which is true and a story for another time. But I remember, that's a whole other, that's one of my that's.
She got stranded scuba diving.
Thank you, Nikita Banana, one of my dear, dear friends who saved my life and sent the boat back. But that's a whole other story for another day. But I remember thinking to myself, here I am in the water, and I literally had to have a conversation with myself. And I remember thinking to myself, calm down. You have to think. And like Leroy, under this sort of resilience heading, like to me, what I heard from Dee was like, his conversation with himself was like a shift into superhero mode. Have you ever had, like, in order to get through like these tough times, whether it was the bullies or just like kind of hunkering in, have you ever had those conversations with yourself? And like, how do you do that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember one time in training, what part of the training in Russia is this water survival training, and it's really a rite of passage. It's total hazing. You don't really have to go through and suffer as much as they make you suffer, but they do make you suffer. And so you're in this little capsule with an instructor and someone else, another astronaut or a cosmonaut. You're in your pressure suit, and it's, the hatch is pretty much closed, and you're in this big water tank, floating in this capsule, and they got ropes, and they're swinging the capsule back and forth to make you seasick. And you've got to get out of your suit, and then you've got to start putting on all these survival layers, because if this happens for real, you're jumping in the water, in the sea, and the idea is to see if you can survive long enough for the rescue forces to come and find you, right? But when you're training for this, you're in there for hours, and you're sweating. I've never been so hot in my life, and you're putting on layer after layer, rubberized, and the last thing you put on is this rubberized garment, and pull it over your head. And that's the closest I came to crying uncle. Say, you know what? I'm out. I got to get out of this capsule. But, it's like you said, you just talk to yourself, all right, take a few deep breaths, calm down. If you get worked up, you're just going to get even more hot. Just calm down, lower your metabolism, and let's get through this. Countless, not countless, but a lot of people have gone through this successfully. And our joke at the time was, there was some German enthusiast, some guy who actually paid like $30,000 to go through this training. I'm like, hey, you want to take my place? But sure enough, I kind of got through it. But yeah, I definitely, when you get in those situations, I talk to myself and kind of calm down. All right, let's figure out the problem. Let's figure out what to do, and let's get through it.
Did it get easier as time went on?
And so, I just calmed down and kind of actually started cooling off a little bit, because like I said, you just got to keep, try to keep as calm as you can to keep your metabolism rate low, and just take these deep breaths. And then slowly, the idea is then you slowly pull these layers on rather than tugging at it. You just kind of slowly pull these layers on and talk yourself into it that it's not that hot.
I was on a helicopter once. I talked earlier about entertaining the troops in the Middle East. And I went out and I was sitting on a helicopter, a Chinook, I think it's called a CH-22.
Yeah.
And I was covered in the flak jacket, the helmet, everything else. It's 115, and then inside the helicopter, it's another 10 degrees hotter.
Right.
I'm fidgeting, freaking out.
Wow.
I'm sitting across from this soldier who's got more stuff. He's got all of his gear on him and everything. And I look him right in the eyes, and he just goes, he's covered in stuff. He just goes like this.
It is what it is, right?
It is what it is. Oh my goodness, Dan. So see, that's a perfect example. All of us from 3 different areas, but I can relate. My story is this. From Run DMC, it used to be a pleasure to wear the Adidas suits, the Adidas track suits. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, right, exactly. So, and we got to understand, they're very comfortable too. You can wear them in the summertime. Once we started putting on the leather suits, remember the Run DMC leather suits? Imagine wearing a leather suit before outside, you know, it's Parliament Funkadelic on the bill, and the Barcade is on the bill, and actually Marvin Gaye was on the bill. So we performing with all of these R&B and funk gods of the 80s, and we're the new kids on the block. So to make an impression, instead of being wise and say, yo, let's wear the Adidas tracksuits. It's August. We got on the Run DMC leather suits. I'm talking about leather blazer, and we got the Run DMC, we got the Adidas jackets under that, and we got sweatshirts on under that, we got the leather pants on, we got the big heavy velour hats on. But here's the killer thing. You go out there and you perform, and I mean, as soon as you walk out in the sun, as soon as you get dressed, you're drenching. But here's the killer thing. We got 3 shows today. So there's no taking the leather off, because this was at a time, Annie, when we would do one show, hop in the car, and shoot
right
to the next town, and then the next town, and then the next town. And I remember by the end of the night, I would finally get to the hotel. I'm talking about, I literally take off a leather suit and squeeze and wring it out. So at all 3 of our situations, you know, regardless of what it is, there's going to be something that is exactly what the other people is going through. And I think that's why it's good for people of diverse backgrounds and who come from different occupations and careers and areas to converse, so that we all can understand this common ground everywhere.
Yeah, right.
Isn't that what you're... Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
I was going to reference Leroy's One Orbit, which I believe by taking your experience and kind of educating people of, you know, whether it's students or corporations or other companies, like taking your experience and helping them understand or maybe become more resilient or overcome those obstacles.
Sure, absolutely. That's part of it for sure. We called our company One Orbit. I started with a business partner of mine, Jamie Sunkel, a professional educator, about 6 years ago, or almost 6 years ago. And we came up with the name One Orbit to kind of as a metaphor for life. You know, you've got one go around. And so our tagline is make the most of your one orbit. You know, in other words, you know, especially when we go talk to young people, we go out there and get them to start thinking about what they want to do with their lives. You know, what do you have an interest in? And don't just kind of bumble around and see where life takes you. I mean, go take active charge of your life and try to steer it in the direction you think you want it to go. And so there's a lesson for that too, in leadership for even corporations and people who are, you know, fairly high up in the corporation. We talk about the importance of the culture of, you know, being able to effectively communicate with people who come from different backgrounds, you know, different cultures, different education, different parts of the country or the world, and being able to effectively communicate that message. Here we are, Americans, we're pretty direct, right? We tend to speak pretty directly, but that doesn't always work with every culture or every personality. And so you've got to figure out how to make sure you're effective in doing that, how you're promoting a culture in your company that, you know, demands precision, you know, that operational precision, just as we need to demand that precision in flying an airplane or a spacecraft or operating a chemical plant. But at the same time, allows people to try different things where appropriate and to fall on their face and fail without being punished. You know, otherwise you're never going to innovate, you're never going to be creative. And so the idea for the leaders, you've got to be able to create this culture that allows both. You know, and that's not an easy thing to do. So, you know, we do a lot of different kinds of corporate training like that and keynote speeches. And then on the education side, we love going out. That's where our passion is, and going to talk to school kids and getting them motivated and getting them to start thinking about what they want to do with their lives instead of just kind of, you know, messing around on social media and then just kind of seeing what happens after graduation.
Right.
That's amazing. Dee, I saw on, speaking of social media, what is this project? Was it called Colors? Is that your new project?
Yeah. It's a song that I had. It's called Colorful. And basically what it was saying with all the racial problems, all the political problems, everybody's so divided.
Yeah.
You know, there was a time you could be Christian and Muslim, and that's what you are. We could get things accomplished. But now everybody is taking what they are literal to the point where if you ain't this, you're not right. And that's not how we get things done. I mean, I come from a culture and I was educated by a culture called rock and roll. You know what I'm saying? When you go to a concert and you look in that audience, it's all type of people from everywhere. And, you know, when I travel the world, people to this day still say, yo, DMC, in that Walk This Way video, when Steven Tyler took that mic stand and knocked down that wall that was separating y'all, that didn't just happen in the video, that happened in the world. And I was like, wow. So with all that's been going on, you know what I'm saying, especially politically and racially, I was saying the world is a beautiful place because it's full of many colors. It's full of many people, many ways of life. I mean, no matter, that's what makes the world beautiful. So it's almost like, how do I talk to people about a complicated thing in an easy way that everybody understands? So we actually did this song called Colorful, which was about all of us, white, black, Puerto Rican, gay, straight, happy, sad, rock and roll, hip hop. And it's not just, I didn't want to just do it about musicians. What makes this world colorful is all the creators, artists, students, teachers, mothers, fathers, all of us in every walks of life. Dan and Leroy, Annie, you can relate to this. You got to be creative to get things done. So what I did was I said, instead of me going out and making the typical same entertainment type of video, I'm going to incorporate middle school kids. I'm going to incorporate high school kids. I'm going to incorporate the mothers, fathers, and the teachers of these kids. Instead of me going to find a known video director, I'm going to go find a high school student, a girl fresh out of school that's interning at News 12, New Jersey. And I'm going to say, hey, do you want to direct a video? Huh? Like, imagine that opportunity. Imagine what that does to them. So I wanted to take the colorful world that we live in and just put it on display. You know what I'm saying? And show that everything that I was able to accomplish and everything, you know, I put all the different pioneers of different genres, fashion, music, art, political people, religious figures. It's about all of us using, if the colors don't come together, there's no rainbow. Would you want to just look at a rainbow that was just green all the time? No, it's beautiful because you got all these colors. So instead of, I did a play on words to make people say, what the hell is going on? So instead of calling the video colorful, I said, colorful? We live in a world that's full of colorful. To make it funny. Yeah. So, and basically what I also wanted to do was, you know, in a video, it's the middle school kids acting like they're walking down the runway during Fashion Week. And then there's the other kids that, you know, all the kids don't have to grow up to be athletes and rappers. Because most of the kids, they all want to be athletes and rappers. I want them to understand that they can be filmmakers. And they can be scientists, and they can be astronauts. You know what I'm saying? And they can be artists. The whole video was based around this lady named Lady Pink. She's a graffiti artist from the early 70s. She was 15 years old. This is powerful. Lady Pink was 15 years old, running around with the dudes tagging trains. Imagine that. She was this girl with all of this confidence that had to show people her art. So she was hopping trains, hopping fences, running from police, running from dogs, just so that she could put her art somewhere. And by having that desire, I mean, the only thing that was wrong about graffiti at the time, we was writing on walls we didn't own.
Right.
But by these individuals expressing a need to unleash the art that's inside of them, now, some of those artists have their art all in the galleries down in Soho in the Village. So it's about showing the young people, yes, there's going to be process because you got to go to school. Leroy, you know this, Dan, you got to go to school and learn your craft and study the business and all of that stuff. But the wonderful breakthrough that builds confidence and resiliency is telling that little kid, you know, that wants to be a photographer, here's a camera. Just go take some pictures. Mm-hmm. And you don't tell them, you don't give them an assignment. You just go tell them, go take a picture, and you should see the portfolios that they come back with. Or you tell a little kid, here's some pen and some papers, draw me a picture. What do you want me to draw? Whatever it is that you want to draw. And then you can see where their mind is focused. So I did this it's a project I had a song called Colorful, and I decided to make families, friends, and students, teachers. I wanted a community to demonstrate all of the beautiful colors that's inside of us all.
Beautiful.
And I've learned that, Annie, because, you know, during my journey, I was always around people who was encouraging me. Yo, you know, you can put it like this. When I was in elementary school, I did have Catholic school. Remember the Blues Brothers? When they went back to talk to the nun and she pulled the yardstick out and stuff and wagging them. So we had those type of nuns in there. You know what I'm saying? Sister Nazaire, I'll never forget her. She was like the nun from the Blues Brothers. So Sister Nazaire were basically, because I'm not supposed to be reading my comic book during school time, but I finished my assignment early. So instead of, you know, I got my social studies book up on the desk like this, but in the middle of it, you can't see, is the comic book. And she would look and always say, Mr. McDaniels, bring it here. So there were teachers that took the comic book and never gave it back. But there was also teachers that took the comic book, rightfully so, but at the end of the day, school day, they would give it back to me. Why? Because they knew, wow, since this kid is reading, I don't care what he reads, as long as he's reading, it's making him a good student. So if we can keep this kid reading, he's going to be a good student. So I've learned those little things, you know, all throughout my career to give an opportunity to see what the desire is. Because like I said in the beginning of this, the desire creates the magic. And by allowing someone to express themselves in whatever form, when an obstacle does come, they will feel anxiety and fear, but they will also have the feeling from that day. And they can reach back and grab that. You know what I'm saying? Like one of the stones that Thanos would put in an infinity glove. They can reach back and grab that and put it in the glove so they could keep moving forward.
Right on.
Beautiful.
I have a lot of comic book metaphors.
They're very relatable, though.
Oh, for sure. And we all go through this. We all go through the same things. And I always try to express that, like, you know, don't call me a celebrity because I am something a celebrity could never be. I always tell, when I speak to the students, I say, I'm not greater than you. I'm not smarter than you. I'm not even more talented than you. I am just an example. I'm real life show and tell of what happens when you take advantage of every educational, creative opportunity that comes your way. I do simple little things. I tell the kids, if you ever get invited to opera, I know you don't want to go, but go, because you're not going for the opera. I say there's going to be a person, place, or thing that was your destiny to meet. Mm-hmm. And you know what I'm saying? You never know what happens. So a lot of kids now, I don't want to go to the tap dance show. I say go because it's not about the tap dancing show. The tap dancing show opportunity is just the thing that'll get you there. And then the kids will go and leave there and say, you know what, Mr. McDaniels, the tap dancing show was actually kind of good. You know what I'm saying? So it's always looking at the opportunity within an opportunity, because you never know what's going to happen.
Do you guys? I have a son who's about to finish high school and go to college, and
wow.
It's amazing for me. It's also terrifying.
Yes, it is.
Do you find that all these experiences has enabled you to speak to your kids? I know that you're both dads as well. Do you speak to your kids with using this knowledge, or has it been? Sometimes people find it easier to educate others' kids than they do their own. You know what I mean? Or maybe they're other people's kids are more willing to listen at times.
Right.
But how has that experience been for you guys?
Not being Dan, it's about not being preachy. It's about just living by example. You know what I'm saying? And my son, when he's starting to do music now. You know what I'm saying? So it was probably 6 years of him doing this music thing that I didn't know this was going on. He wants to be more like, you know, LL Cool J, Michael Jackson, but all his friends want him to rap like his dad. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And, you know, why aren't you doing the rock and roll thing? His friends was putting more pressure on him than I was.
Yeah.
And it took about 6 years for me to finally say, hold on, no, wait. You do not have to walk in my shoes and fill my legacy. You don't have to be the new king of rock. You don't have to be the new walk this way guy. I want you to do what it is that you want to do. And then I gotta hit him with the truth. It's not gonna be easy. I said, it's easy for you to make your song. And he's really good. Like he's so good. And this is true. He's so good that when he plays his music, especially around, he wants to make music for his generation, but when he plays his music around adults, they say, and I don't know where this come from, but then I saw it, his charisma. They say my son is like Frank Sinatra.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Leroy, I love it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I say, yo, D, you might have to put on a tux.
Yeah.
And have a piano there. You know, you're doing your rap thing. I'm saying that's it. But I always tell them, yeah, you can look at my success, but you don't know what, you see the videos, you hear the records, but you don't know what happened when the lights wasn't on.
That's right.
Those are the things you have to sit down and talk to them wholeheartedly about, because you know we live in a generation where kids, everything for them is at the push of a button. The music, the information, social media. They think life works at the push of a button. And I had to explain to my son, I said, you are blessed. You have everything at the push of a button, but you do not know what it's like to go look for the same information that you could get at the push of a button in a thing called an encyclopedia. Huh? What's that?
The library.
Well, there's this thing called, exactly. So we used to have to work to get whatever it is that we wanted. Now it's easy for them to get it, but they don't realize once they get it, you still got to do the work. So I try to live by example with my son, but I tell him, even though your thing's at the push of a button, it's still going to be hard. And I think that's what we need to do with our kids. Speak to them, have dialogue with them, and make them feel that they could come to you and ask you or tell you anything. And Leroy, I think that's what's important.
Yeah.
Leroy, how old are your kids now?
Oh, my kids are 14. I have a boy and a girl, and they're both 14. They're twins.
Nice.
Yeah, but I agree. I think leading by example is the best way to do it. And my kids see that I work hard. They know that I work hard and travel a lot before the pandemic, and hopefully again soon.
Yes.
And another thing is, I agree. Worst thing you could be is preachy. So I try very hard not to do that. Mm-hmm. And instead, I just have conversations with them. I talk about the importance of figuring out what kind of person you want to be. And I tell them about my childhood when I was their age. I was always a pretty good student. But then kind of around the age of 14, I started hanging around with this one guy and decided to try things like shoplifting, being a bad guy. Let's try this out. That's pretty cool. We're getting free yo-yos and things like that. And then I just started feeling badly about myself and, decided that's not who I was. And so I tell them these stories so that they don't think that, any experiences they have or any things that they try that they're outliers. Everybody goes through this kind of thing, but you have to decide what kind of person you want to be. And then professionally, people are always asking, oh, your kid's going to be astronauts. They're like, no, hey, you know what? If they want to be, I'll help them. But I do not push them at all to go into anything like that. And my son, since he was very young, has been interested in the human body and how the body works. Then he got really interested in the human brain. And so for many years, he said he wants to be a neurosurgeon. I'm like, hey, that's great. You know, and my daughter, she's very creative, but you know, I just tell him, yeah, you know, that's great that you love doing these crafts and these arts, and it's really wonderful, and she makes these wonderful things. But I said, you know, but you need to figure out what you want to do professionally too, because, you know, sure, if you really have a talent and you really want to do art, then yeah, absolutely, I'll support you going and becoming an artist for sure. But, you know, otherwise, it's your hobby. It's kind of something you love doing. Just like for me, flying an airplane is something I've been doing for a long time, but it wasn't something I wanted, you know, I didn't want to be an airline pilot and kind of just, you know, that wasn't my dream. But, you know, I can still do it as a hobby. And then, you know, I figured out that being an engineer was the direction I wanted to go. And that actually got me to what I really wanted to do, which was to be an astronaut. So she wants to be an engineer, she thinks. And so I'm a scientist or an engineer. And I'm like, well, that's great, you know. And so we just try to, you know, I just try to expose them to a lot of different things and different people and see what they think is, you know, is cool and what they want to do. But yeah, I agree. You know, the thing I worry about too is that my kids have it, you know, compared to my memory of my experience is pretty easy. You know, I used encyclopedias, and even in graduate school, we had to go to the library to look up other people's papers we were going to cite and put in our papers. We didn't have the internet, you know, we didn't have any of those things. And you know, and my kids are a little bit sheltered too. You know, or I shouldn't say a little bit, a lot sheltered. You know, they're in private school. They've never been bullied. And you know what? I think just like you need to be exposed to, you know, bacteria and viruses to keep your immune system strong. Well, you need to be exposed to the real world too. And they joke about it. They know they're living in a bubble. But I worry about that a little bit, you know. But so I try to keep talking to them, like you said, Dee. I just keep trying to talk to them and tell them about stories. And then they really relate when I tell them about stories about, you know, my experiences when I was their age.
Right. It's true. Here's a wonderful story. When my son was first in preschool, the educators are doing a wonderful job with our kids. Now I think it's up to the powers that be, what I mean, like government, because I realized 150 million% these little kids are paying attention to everything. Here's a perfect example. And what I mean by that is you can't prevent them getting exposed to everything, but when they get exposed to something, you got to have dialogue so that they understand it and not get the understanding from the wrong sources. When my son was in preschool, I was always traveling. I'm always traveling. So my son is he's 4 years old, right? So my wife Zuri, she goes to pick him up from preschool one day, right? So the teacher says to my wife, "Oh, I didn't know your husband was a pilot." And my wife looks at, she said, what do you mean a pilot? Who told you that? The teacher goes, "Well, we had career day where we was talking to little kids about what their parents do. So D-son said his father's a pilot." And then my wife, I cried laughing. She told me, she just bust out crying laughing. And the teacher was like, "What's so funny?" She said, "No, my husband's in the entertainment business. Little D-son was so used to sitting in the back of the car seat and seeing his mother drop me off at the airport to play for a whole year. So now he goes in preschool. If you ask him the question, he flies planes."
Obviously.
So these kids are paying attention, and it's funny, you know, because the teachers were younger than my generation. That's how a lot of the teachers found out of DMC from Run DMC. But I thought that was very important that my son is just observing.
Yeah, right.
So when somebody, "What does your father do?" He just look. He says,
"That's great."
That's the beautiful thing, and that's the power that I want parents and educators, and especially the power to be, to understand that how if these kids, especially now with social media, you get everything instantly. Like I said, Leroy and Dan and Annie, you know, we used to have to work to get our information. Now it's at the push of a button.
Right.
So we should allow them to have access to the right information. And like you said, Leroy, You don't want your kids to have the wake-up call when they get on that job and they meet the person with that bully or ignorant personality, because they might not be getting it now. And, that kind of happened to me in the music business, Annie. I thought it was just you make songs like the Beatles. I didn't know it was cutthroats and disrespectful people and liars and cheats and something like that. And sometimes that can destroy you. But I guess my resiliency came from, I never paid attention to those individuals. I always try to do what I do with the same objectives, desire, enthusiasm, and eagerness as I always did it when I first started writing a song. I'm writing a song just to write it. Whatever happens after that, if it's successful, it's cool. But my victory is in the fact that I wrote it and finished it.
Right.
Indeed, man. That's a win.
It is.
It's so interesting because you guys, thank you so much, because what's occurring to me is that resilience, just by the nature of you being resilient, you're helping to set that example for others. So even if it's done like for purely like self-preservation, or even if someone for selfish reasons became resilient, anyone, right?
Right.
It's just suddenly occurring to me that resilience as a practice is contagious in a good way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Because
what you do, because it's like it's paving this example. So it's not the whole like I'm not a role model thing. It's like you're just living your best life, and you're doing it. You're being resilient, but showing that example. And I guess as a extension of that, have you both found that is true or not? And then on a side, have you found that you've been able to pave the way for kids just like you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree, Annie. I think you're absolutely right. And one of the kind of the most impactful things I say to kids, or you kind of see them react, is I talk to them about my trouble getting through university, and I said, you probably look at me and think, well, you're an astronaut, you probably got straight A's without even having to try. And I said, that's not really true. And I told them about the stories about trying to get through university. And I said, I've never worked harder in my life. And I finished up with a B+ average, and not straight A's. And I'm very proud of that B+ average. My point to them is that, it's hard work. It's, everybody's got smarts. Okay. I'm a smart guy. You're all smart too. And it's just how hard and how resilient are you, and how much perseverance are you willing to put into what you really want to do? And that's going to make the difference between success and giving up.
And I guess for me to add to that, it's all about telling your truth and not being ashamed of your truth. Like, the thing to make people understand that your story is the most powerful story ever. I say, never say you want to be like somebody. You learn from those individuals, because nobody can be like, you can't be like them, and nobody can be like you. But I think any resilience is contagious in a good way. For a perfect example is this: when I came into this hip hop music, it was based on so-called hardships and negativity and poverty and death, darkness, and destruction coming out of these ghetto communities. But I'm a little kid that's in these ghetto communities, and I don't care anywhere on the face of the earth. In the dirt poor ghetto, there's fun, there's kindness, there's beauty, there's creativity, there's friendship, there's honesty and sharing. So when I get on a microphone, I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not, just to fit in. And when I say about the resilience, everything that was working against me when I was younger, growing up, the obstacles hit me right in the face. I was able to use those things as weapons to overpower the adversity. For instance, I used to get teased for wearing glasses.
Right.
Before glasses was wearing, my whole life growing up, hey, 4 eyes. Remember that word? Hey, binoculars. Hey, spectacles. You know what I'm saying? And I was so ashamed of wearing my glasses that I would take them off when I went outside, and I would only put them on when I got in class. At the end of the school day, I would take them off just when I went outside. But I'm realizing I'm outside, I'm blind as a bat, I can't see nothing. So long story short, when I come into the music business, and it was, all those great writers teaching me, Bob Dylan and John Fogerty and John Lennon and Joni Mitchell and Janis Joplin, teaching me I'm perfect as, I'm beautiful just the way that I am. So when I got on the mic, one of the things that I would say, I didn't have to be violent. I didn't have to be disrespectful. I didn't have to attack anybody. All of those kids that was teasing me, I did remember them. So one of my first rhymes was D's for doing it all of the time. M's for the rhymes that are on mine. C's for cool as can be. And Ron would ask me, why you wear those glasses? And I would tell the world, so I can see. And everybody would lose their mind. Oh my God. I didn't wear the glasses to be fashionable. I didn't wear the glasses to be cool. I wore these glasses because if I don't wear them, I ain't gonna be able to see nothing. So I was able to use all of the little things that people held against me. I realized that was my powers. And what I like to tell little kids, everything that the world, the so-called normal world, thinks is wrong with you, that's actually your power, or else they wouldn't be talking about it. And now, to this day, it still works. D's for doing it all of the time. M's for the rhymes that are on mine. C's for cool as can be. If you ask me, why do you wear those contacts? So I can see. What do contacts start with? So I try to tell kids everything that you are is your strength. So don't be ashamed of who you are. Don't be ashamed of your position or your situation, and always rely on the one thing that nobody can take from you. And they go, what's that? You are perfect just the way you are.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. That's gorgeous.
That is feels like a perfect place to wrap up this amazing conversation. Annie and I like to think that our job is to bring two amazing people together, which we've done here, and then just stay out of the way. And, I feel like we've achieved our goal for the day. So thank you.
It's amazing.
That was great.
We have
great
a lot in common: sweating and being hot, failing at tests.
Our comic book, and I was picturing D in yours, Leroy in his, Dan in his, and me in my scuba gear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Comic book.
That's a wonderful. Imagine that picture. Imagine that picture.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was been great fun. Yeah, absolutely.
And, we really appreciate it. And D, I miss you so much, and I can't wait to see you soon.
I can't wait to see you in person. Leroy, always a pleasure. Dan,
yeah, absolutely, D. Yeah, me too.
Hopefully we'll all be face to face sooner than later.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think so.
We'll give another festival.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you
guys.
guys.
Later.
All right, thanks, Dan, Annie. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for the inspiration.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.